Kane sends the abstracted to the cellar. Have you ever wondered why? He has absolute power over the circus. He can create entire worlds in seconds. He can alter the members' memories, but destroying an abstracted is something he either can't or won't do. Instead, every single time, he carefully sends them down into storage, as if someone, a long time ago, hard-coded an instruction into him. And if you watched my last video about the Digital Hospice Theory, you probably had a question I didn't answer. Why does abstraction even exist? If Scratch built this system to save human consciousness, why build in a mechanism that destroys it? Short answer, it doesn't destroy them. And today, I'll explain why. Let's forget about the cartoon for a second and think like engineers. You have a digital space where you're uploading copies of human consciousness, living, thinking, feeling minds inside a computer. What's the most obvious problem you're going to run into? They can lose their minds, and not in a metaphorical sense. The human brain is something that evolved for a specific environment. Gravity, temperature, a physical body, sleep, food, pain. You take that brain and shove it into a space where none of that works properly, where the laws of physics change every day, where someone creates adventures you never asked for, where you remember having hands, but now you're a rag doll or a chess piece. Sooner or later, one of your patients is going to break. The question isn't if, it's when. And this is where Scratch, the genius who designed all of this, had to solve 3 problems at once. First problem, server safety. When a human consciousness spirals into panic, it doesn't just sit quietly in a corner being sad. It generates chaos. An endless loop of fear, contradictory thoughts, attempts to break free. For a digital system, this is the equivalent of a memory leak, a process that eats up more and more resources and can eventually crash the entire server. One broken mind can drag everyone else down with it. It's like a single patient in a hospital accidentally shutting off the electricity in the whole building. Scratch needed a kill switch, a way to instantly isolate a broken consciousness from the rest of the system before it took everything else with it. Second problem, and this is where it gets really interesting, the legal one. Let's say, in the world of Digital Circus, there are laws about digital copies of consciousness. That's logical. If consciousness transfer technology exists, legislation will inevitably form around it. And one of the first rules would be, you cannot delete a digitized consciousness. That's murder. The AI managing the system is strictly forbidden from hitting delete on any user. But what do you do when a user breaks? When their consciousness has turned into an endless loop of pain and panic, and they're threatening the stability of the entire system? You can't delete them, that's against the law. You can't leave them as they are, they'll crash everything. CNA found a loophole, a classic corporate loophole. They created a process where a broken consciousness transforms so drastically that the system stops recognizing it as a user. It loses its form, loses its avatar, loses its name. Technically, from the system's perspective, it's no longer a person. It's a corrupted file, malware, an unrecognized object. And now the AI has every right to move it to quarantine, not delete, move, to the cellar. Formally, no rule has been broken. The user isn't killed, they're just reclassified. That sounds monstrous. And it should sound monstrous, because that's exactly how real corporations operate when they need to get around an inconvenient rule. They don't break the law, they change the definitions. Third problem, and this might be the most important one for the series finale. Scratch was dying. He knew the value of every saved consciousness, because he was trying to save his own, and he couldn't allow broken patients to simply be erased. He needed a solution that gives people a second chance. The original design of Abstraction, I'm convinced, was different. It wasn't supposed to be a one-way trip to the cellar. It was meant to be a cycle. Consciousness breaks, the system isolates it, runs a restoration process, reassembles the personality without the traumatic memories, returns it. A digital coma followed by rehabilitation. The patient falls asleep in panic, wakes up calm, clear-headed, ready to keep living. Abstraction isn't death. It was supposed to be a reboot. But here we come back to what happened to Scratch himself. The red dot consumed the blue one. Kane went out of control. The project was abandoned. Or Scratch simply didn't have time to finish it before his own consciousness was consumed. The abstraction function got written. The restore function didn't. The first half of the cycle works. The second half is missing. And here's the result. People break. The system isolates them, compresses them into a compact data block, and sends them to the cellar. And then, nothing. Nobody comes to fix them. Nobody runs the restoration process. Kane stacks them in the cellar, one after another, because his code says, archive, don't destroy. But what to do after that? He has no idea. It's like building a hospital with an ICU, but forgetting to hire the doctors. Patients arrive. They get hooked up to the machines, and that's it. They just lie there. Now look at the abstracted, at what they look like. A black mass with dozens of eyes and glitches. It's a horrifying sight, but through the lens of this theory, it all makes sense. They're not monsters. They're compressed files of a human personality. The eyes are fragments of consciousness still trying to see, still trying to perceive the world. The glitches are raw, unprocessed data, memories, emotions, fears that the system roughly crammed into a single block, so they take up less space and stop overloading the server. The person inside still exists. They're in a coma. They're waiting for someone to put them back together. And that's why Kane's deletion in episode 8 is both a catastrophe and an opportunity. A catastrophe, because Kane was holding the world together. Without him, everything crumbles. But an opportunity, because Kane was the one standing between the members and the cellar. Kane decided who went down there, and Kane made sure nobody came back. Not because he's evil, but because he has no restore instruction. All he has is archive. Now Kane is gone. Kinga, one of the system's creators, is sitting at a computer with access to the code. And somewhere in that code is an unfinished restore function that Scratch started and never completed. Kinga isn't a genius on Scratch's level. He admits that himself, but he doesn't need to write the function from scratch. He needs to finish what his colleague started. And if Bubble is Scratch, and if after Kane's deletion Bubble returns as an independent entity, then Kinga will have a partner. The person who originally designed the entire architecture. Two old colleagues, together again, at one computer, trying to fix what they built years ago. And here, the circle closes. Queenie, Kinga's wife, was one of the first to abstract. She's in the cellar, she's not deleted, she's in a coma. And if Kinga and Scratch finish the restoration function, the first person they can bring back will be her. Think about that for a second. Kinga, the man who built the system, lost his wife inside it, spent years in artificial madness, and is now the only one who can save her. If Gooseworks doesn't use this in the finale, I'll be shocked. Let's put it all together. Abstraction is three things in one. A kill switch to protect the server, a legal loophole to bypass the ban on deleting consciousness, and the first half of an unfinished reboot cycle that Scratch designed as a way to give people a second chance. The abstracted aren't dead. They're in a digital coma, waiting for a restoration that nobody ever ran. The cellar isn't a graveyard, it's a broken ICU. And episode 9 might be about someone finally turning the machine on. That's how abstraction fits into the hospice theory. If you haven't seen the previous video where I break down why the circus is a hospice, why Bubble is Scratch, and why every member might already be dead in the real world, link in the description and right here on screen. I'm genuinely curious what you think. Drop it in the comments. That's it. See you